Okay, remember that they are changing my voice. In regards to the Jehovah's Witness discussion, I'd like to point out that yes, I was having difficulty speaking, and they were using potent fumes on me that enhanced the feeling of anxiety, right? That you would feel if some stranger approached you. And so, it came off that way, but to some degree, they must have edited the audio covertly as well. Okay. So again, if I was really afraid, I would have just driven off. But instead, I stood around because I said, this is interesting. What's going on? Let me figure out what's going on here. I'd also like to point out that he was speaking very slowly, and he was used to having conversations with people as he had been knocking on doors for 50 years, is what he pointed out. He was an older person, maybe 70 years old or so. And it's important to note that he understood what I was saying, okay? Because a lot of times on the internet, they pretend that I'm crazy, where he was like, okay, that's your argument, I can understand that. Now, there was one point where I went on and on about the different scriptures that prove my point. Now, to some degree, that's what he was doing to me, where he was pointing to different scriptures and reading from them, okay? And that if you're not prepared ahead of time when it comes to the Bible, and he says, look at this over here in Ecclesiastes, and look at this in Matthew, and this over here, and you're just sort of familiar with the scriptures. I was pretty familiar with these chapters, these books, but I wasn't that familiar. There's a lot of dots that can be connected. When that occurs, you're like, okay, let me think. And it's important that you understand that when you use the boundaries of righteousness and justice, the measuring line and plume line, right, your scales and measuring line, your measure, that it helps you understand what is correct and what isn't. Would God allow for the inhabitants of the earth to screen out the righteous in a calculated manner and then say, well, now we're creating a God race here, and then resurrect the righteous and then bring them here in some form, and then they all just live forever? No, that is a fairy tale ending that doesn't make sense. In order to understand why people who say that are wrong, you have to understand why the prophets are limited with their knowledge. Okay, what's actually going on? God isn't literally showing himself to these people in a way that's like a ghost or something. He's not literally in their presence in some kind of fairy tale or cartoon way and explaining things to them. They are having revelations, right? Epiphanies, right? In a state of moral intensity, in a state of moral servitude to God, moral, loyalty and determination and dedication. They are having an epiphany. They realize something. It's like, I see what you're trying to say, versus, you actually see an apparition or ghost that appears literally. That did not happen. It's part of the Bible formula to explain things as if it did. And I've brought this up many times, where, when Jesus calmed the storm, that didn't literally happen. When Jesus resurrected, people that died, right? One was a woman's daughter, and one was a male, okay? That these things didn't actually occur. These are, they're doing it in a way that's figurative. And it's very difficult to explain that to people who act like it's blasphemy to say that. Jesus didn't die and come back in the way that you think that he did. Okay? It's referring to, and it's also what had occurred in the Roman Empire wasn't what you think, right? It was something that they were referring to that had occurred in Africa and in the African peoples. Okay? Because the Roman government, which had merged with a lot of Greek cults when Rome had taken over Greece, and Jupiter was now the major deity that was worshipped in the area, no longer Zeus. Jupiter is the Roman version. They Roman washed it. The Greeks are said to be the first to translate the Bible. They Greek washed it. But before them, other people had washed things in their ways. The Sabines and the Etruscans and various people in the area, right? They had Phoenician, Canaanite system, for example. They had, washed it in their culture away. Okay, the Middle Eastern culture, Mesopotamia, Canaan, what have you. So, as we look at the facts here, and you say, as a rational person who believes in God, does God expect you to believe your oppressor about these extreme claims that he's making? Okay? And you say you have faith in God and you just know it's true. But if you really search your mind, you search your soul, okay, what you're saying is you have faith in your oppressor and his book and his translation of the book. And I'm saying I'm the top martial artist ever, the most righteous person ever. My explanation is more logical. I'm not your oppressor. I am oppressed more than you are by your oppressor. These people in their own story, they crucified Christ and they took over Europe and then they colonized the world, and now we are here in America, for example. Why would you believe them that somebody in their empire of all places, the people who took over the world, died and actually came back to life, made it so people see literally, instead of the formula we see time and time again in the Bible? And Jesus was quoting scripture, which means he's quoting the formula. Okay, we see in Galatians 4, it says Sarah and Hagar are being taken figuratively. Why would you jump to the conclusion that these things were literal? Where wind, the Greek word for wind, for example, is the same as the Greek word for spirit. I beat them as fine as wind-blown dust, as spirit-blown dust. I trampled them like mud in the streets. Psalm 18:42. We see in Isaiah 30, right? Is God literally striking these people down? Or is it part of the formula we see time and time again in Zechariah, Zephaniah, Obadiah, in Amos and Joel? We see it time and time again, this figurative speech. These things are being used to refer to something else. There's analogies and metaphors and parables. Isaiah 30:30, the Lord will cause people to hear his majestic voice. Really, he'll literally hear the voice of the God? Why would God have a human voice? And will make them see his arm coming down with raging anger and consuming fire. So his huge arm is going to appear in the sky, and you're going to feel the anger and see fire coming down with cloudburst, thunderstorm, and hail. Look at all the things that are being touched on here. Jesus will come back in a cloud. Okay? Okay, when I once was lost, but now I'm found, and was blind, but now I see. What are they referring to? They're referring to the mental vision, right? They were in a brain fog, if you will, in a fugitive state. They're fugitives from morality, and they're having trouble discerning reality. But now they see the point of life. Okay. Now, what helps you do that more than martial arts? When you see an old physics teacher in college, is he sharper and wiser than a martial arts teacher who's actually a valid martial arts teacher? No. Is the martial art teacher who's polytheistic or agnostic smarter than the monotheistic guy? No. Because it has to do with tribalism clouding his judgment. Why would there be more than one God? Where's the proof there's more than one God? They all, you picture it like a democracy or like a communist committee. Why would there be more than one God? And then what do they cite? They cite characteristics in people. So you assume because some people are jerks that there's a deity of jerks out there? Okay? It's just illogical. It does not add up. What was first? All these so-called gods together? So it's logical to come to the conclusion that there's one God. That is the best explanation for things. And when you're a martial artist who deals in righteousness, you know there's one God if you truly are living true righteousness. God is putting a spirit into you, and you're having extreme mental clarity. You're able to put things together better than before in a natural and supernatural way. So if I said this, struggling on my words, and right now I'm not struggling that much because it's the morning, I'm in a certain location. There's times when things like that occur where I have more mental clarity than before, okay, because they're fuming me, okay, and when they are more than others times, when they're fuming more than other times, then I have less trouble articulating. But either way, just like Christ on the cross in the story, where they're trying to feed him vinegar and so on and so forth, and he's suffering mental stress, people are still listening to him. So it's stupid to cite that I struggle on my words at times and to say, well, let these liars teach it instead of you teaching the truth because you struggle on your words. That's stupid, right?